You know that feeling when you watch the first episode of an anime and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna like this one. Well, I only bring it up because yes, this is that anime. Hey, what's the name of the anime? Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken. Alright, I will. But what's the name of the anime again? Okay, I'm pretty sure that joke is past its due date. So why does Eizouken speak to me? Well, if you don't know already, I like creating things. Whether it's short films or animation, I like being able to create worlds, place characters into them, and tell a story. Eizouken brings me back to my childhood where I used to let my imagination go wild. And if you keep watching, I'll show you some of my old childhood comic books that I drew as a treat. The story revolves around three girls, Midori Asakusa, Sayaka Kanamori, and Tsubame Misuzaki, who wants to make anime. But I think Kanamori just wants to make money. They do run into some problems though. Misuzaki comes from a wealthy family of actors who don't want her to be in the anime club. So the three need to create their own club to make anime. The parents can't say anything about it because it's not called the anime club, so it's all good. But pretty quickly they're able to establish a club and start working on their passion project. Only 2 episodes are out, and so far the story is pretty simple. But what makes this anime good is the characters and their seemingly limitless creativity, the strange world they live in, and the anime's appreciation of anime. That last part might have sounded a little bit weird, but I hope it makes sense later. The way we experience their creative mindset is pretty fascinating because there's complete freedom and license to do anything they can think of. Like, I don't know if there's an actual term for it, but I call it like stream of consciousness creativity, where you just pretty much let your imagination run wild without planning it out, just letting it spill onto the paper. Kind of like Asakusa's flying skirt. In reality, all those like spinning blades around your waist is pretty much asking for your arms or legs to get chopped off. But who cares? You're young and bursting with imagination. This is like imagination world. The laws of physics and safety regulations have no control over you. Well, luckily, someone like Kanamori is there to bring them back to reality, or more like the pavement. That's how the brainstorming process usually works. You think up of like a couple of ideas off the top of your head, and then you bounce it off others. And they can either add to it or critique it. The three's personalities and skills fit each other pretty well. Asakusa specializes more in the design and detail of the backgrounds, and Misuzaki specializes in the characters and their movements. The two of them do get carried away pretty often, but luckily Kanamori is there to keep everyone on track. And if you look closely at the opening, you can see their interests and personalities in the little frames around their heads. Kanamori's not only have like croquettes and her favorite drink, but also more mathematical and stonks related stuff. Let's talk about the art and design of the anime. The choice of aesthetics is pretty strange, but in a good way. If you're a curious amateur artist like me, or have like an interest in unconventional world design, then this anime is great to watch and like pause on certain scenes, because the locations are like a blend of familiar scenes, but they're erratically and like nonsensically arranged. The buildings are stacked like high and all over the place like a maze, and like some air conditioning units block doorways, and there's even clocks that just face outwards towards the ocean. It's literally just been placed depending on like the whims of an artist. And for some reason, the teacher's office is kind of at the bottom of a dry pool, which is weird. I mean, these are just some of the strange things I could think up off the top of my head. But when it comes to like the interior of the buildings, most of them do kind of seem familiar. Like, we've all seen the inside of a Japanese school. Okay, I haven't physically been in a Japanese school, but years of watching anime count for something, right? In general, the location design is creative and otherworldly, but not in the typical like otherworldly sense as sci-fi or steampunk. Staying on the subject of design, the characters are drawn very simply but distinct. Asukasa has like a big and cute face. Kanamori looks kind of mischievous, and Mizusaki looks like a girl, an ordinary girl. So how does Eizouken appreciate anime? Well, one of the obvious one is that it pays homage to Future Boy Conan, a classic series directed by Miyazaki back in his earlier years. But from what I know, they couldn't get the clearance to use the original clips, so pretty much they had to recreate the entire thing, with the sound, retrace the anime. That's a lot of work. If that's not dedication, then I don't know what is, because they could have used pretty much any other anime that would have allowed them to use it. Also, if you're into the animation process, episode 2 should also be a very good one, because they talk about the tools of traditional animation, the perspective of rotating objects, and how to create the illusion of wind blowing. It kind of felt like a tutorial I was watching on YouTube. Every time they go into their animation world, they use a roughly drawn and watercolored look. It kind of reminds me of the storyboards and quick concept art from Miyazaki. And so since Eizouken is all about youngsters unleashing their creativity, let's show you guys some of the old comics I drew. So when I was a kid, I drew this, I don't even know if you can see this clearly, but I drew this comic book series called Pigman. And that's pretty much a mad scientist called Lewis creates a couple of superpowered pigs that fight crime and have this arch nemesis called Mahjong or whatever. It has nothing to do with Mahjong, the game thing, but yeah, it's pretty weird. Pretty much throughout the entire comic book, I never planned out anything. It's literally as I describe it. It's stream of consciousness, just letting everything spill onto the page. Yeah, and then later on, I tried to experiment with a little color. This was around the time when I started to read manga. This is definitely inspired from One Piece, the was it the Sunny boat? The one with the dog? But eventually, yeah, I started to get more into manga and all that, and I started, looking at this. Wow. It's inked, but instead of using legit ink, I use ballpoint pen. Just like how we see Asakusa's art style change as she gets older. This was, I think, my last comic book frame I ever drew. It's just this. And you can see it's totally different from the other ones. All the panels follow a very similar styles. It's got 6 panels on each page. Occasionally I get a little bit feisty and creative. I'm ooh, let's combine 2 of the panels. Wow, isn't that amazing? But now here, my last comic book I ever drew, or my last page I ever drew, it starts to, become a little bit more varied. It becomes a little bit more diverse in terms of how the boxes are shaped. It's interesting to see the very first edition of the comic book, or the first chapter, all the way to the very last unfinished frame. So when I first saw Asakusa drawing her sketches and later on being transported into it, the memories I had as a child drawing all these crazy and weird stories came flooding back to me. It really reignited my childhood creativity, where I want to get back to working on a whole bunch of projects I gave up on, which happens to be one of my New Year's resolution. Make more videos, finish maybe one of my animation projects that I've neglected for years, and maybe even make a film. If you've watched Eizouken, what'd you think about it so far? Did it ignite something within you? Maybe curiosity to create, to draw or something? Let me know in the comments. And as always, my friends, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.